Hello, hello. This is Josh with the Synchronized Universe podcast coming at you from my drive home. Just wanted to get on and give a quick update about what's been going on with me. Currently been doing another podcast / radio show with my buddy every week on Tuesdays with the Paranormal Truth Seekers. Ricky LaFountain is the one that's doing that one. We've been getting on there and talking about some really deep subjects about ancient civilizations, specifically the Anunnaki and how they may or may have not influenced mankind. If you don't know who that is, I strongly suggest looking it up. It's a fascinating tale, honestly. It's one of the things that is one of the subjects that's really influenced me more than just about any other over the past several years. Once I really started reading books, I really didn't start reading books until, I think it was 2017-ish, 2018 is when I really started. Before that, I'd read a handful of books my entire life. And usually it was when it was required for school or whatever. And, I just actually fell in love with reading. I started reading books on subjects like ancient civilizations, extraterrestrial stuff, religion, trying to research all the different religions. I've read the Bhagavad Gita, I've read the Bible, I've read the parts of the Quran, I've read parts of the Mormon Bible, or the Book of Mormon, and then, I've also read a bunch of other, esoteric knowledge types books, and, it's just become a real passion of mine. And part of it, originally, when I started reading all these books, is because I like to, honestly, talk to people about different religions, and I like to try to showcase the facts that sorry, my language, that a lot of religions are way more similar than people realize. And the reason why we can't realize that is because you're stuck in the bubble. You're not allowed to look outside this book for information because that's what you're told and taught your whole life. So you're trapped in a bubble. That tends to be fine if you have a faith in God and you believe in that, and that's making you happy and giving you strength. That's amazing. That's cool. But there's also there can be a lot of negative aspects to certain types of religions, condemning anybody who doesn't believe in your religion. And it's just that type of stuff is what's, it's driven a fire in me since I was younger, and I like to research it. So that was one of the driving forces behind researching religion. And then ancient civilizations, it's honestly a big thing for me because I've never looked at our history like it was correct. I really don't. We're jammed. When we're in school, we're taught that this is the way it is, this is the way it happened, and nothing else to see. And they keep coming across new discoveries and discovering older and older ruins, and yet they haven't updated our timelines. So they keep finding older and older ruins, and our history books are not being updated to showcase that. And the reason is because they can't explain it. We don't know how we're finding older and older ruins based on our current paradigm, based on our current understanding of our history. We shouldn't be finding these things, but we are, right? And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. So a lot of people, you do your basic, school, high school, graduate. If you don't go to college, a lot of people, they know what they know based on the schools they went to. That's it. Outside of that, people don't have time to research because they're, working. They're trying to take care of households, take care of kids. And that's honestly why people stay stuck in their ways. They stay stuck in stuff that they were taught by somebody else. And it was another inspiration for why I wanted to do the podcast I'm doing all together. It's, to try to help people maybe learn something that they didn't know. Because again, most people don't take the time to research anything. Because first of all, they don't have the time. You have to have the time to really spend reading these books and all that neat stuff. So yeah, that's one of the things on Tuesday we've been talking about is one of the things is the origin of mankind. So there's two basic theories that we have. We have evolution theory and we have creation theory. And the evolution theory is the one that's taught in school. It's the one that's shoved down our throat. And Evolution absolutely, can explain a lot of the different creatures on our planet, a lot of the different plant lives, etc. But, they can't really explain exactly how we came to be. We have ideas, yeah, maybe this is the most plausible. However, it doesn't really complete all the puzzle. And just like the creation story, it's not any better. Either one of those is not any better than the other. The idea that, God created man, or let's just use the Christian theory for example, that God created man and Adam and Eve, and then essentially Adam and Eve, filled up the earth. And, that's the real basic principle of that. Essentially, they were in the Garden of Eden and got kicked out because they ate the fruit. And lo and behold, here we are. All of a sudden, they were building these crazy civilizations, etc. And honestly, that doesn't make any sense. Just like the evolution theory ultimately doesn't make any sense because it doesn't explain how we seem to have had an evolutionary jump. Like from basic, basic hunter-gatherer groups, making minor tools to kill prey and stuff, to building advanced cities and having codes of law and tilling crops, planting crops, domestication of animals, all that neat stuff, like that comes along with civilization. It just seemed to spring up out of nowhere. And the Sumerians are credited as being like the first civilization, but no one knows how they got the knowledge that they have. And most people, again, so we learn about, in history books, we learn about the Sumerians being like the first civilized cities, right? Prior to that, we were hunter-gatherers living in caves, etc. So where is the jump? How did it all of a sudden, in such a short time frame, how did we learn all these things? The things that should have taken by any relatives, by evolution standards, thousands of millions of years to freaking to come up with, to learn. And it just can't be explained through any normal means. And again, if you've never looked outside of what they taught you in history or science class, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's crazy. But I mean, honestly, if you really think about it, neither story explains it. I suppose the creation story, you could be like, yes, God taught these people this stuff. Granted, yes. I mean, I'm sure that's how it would be explained if you were to ask somebody. But, I mean, I don't know. That's not any less far-fetched than the evolution idea that we just all of a sudden learned it out of nowhere. The fact is, I mean, every single ancient culture in the world has, a pantheon of gods that they worshipped. And they spoke about these deities like they were interacting with them at all times. Just like how the Bible talks about, how people were regularly interacting with God, and God was regularly interacting with humankind, and oftentimes destroying massive amounts of humankind for disobeying. And the other thing that all these ancient cultures have in common is that they say that these gods taught them the things that they knew. And that's another thing that's driven this hunger for knowledge for me. It's because, again, the basic story doesn't make any sense. The evolution story at its base and the creation story at its base don't complete enough of the puzzle. And I think that shows that there's a manipulation going on. So I think it's crazy to me that it's taught as absolute fact in school that we evolved from, we evolved slowly over time, and that's what happened. We all of a sudden came to be the way we are without really any explanation on the link. So why it's taught like that in school, why it's drilled into our heads, why we have to take so many tests on it it's crazy to me. Like, it's not set in stone. I mean, yes, evolution is a theory. And again, in certain animals, plant life, and all that stuff, we can absolutely see evolution. But what I'm talking about is us, because we are different. Like, first of all, if you look at the definition of an invasive species, we act like we are an invasive species on this planet. And honestly, DNA records, like, essentially, we kind of are an invasive species. And, there's definitely evidence of caveman, cave people and stuff like that. But again, there's no missing link. Like, where is the missing link? Where is the jump? Why do they keep finding older and older civilizations? I mean, that tears the creation. Most people that are die-hard creationists think that the Earth is 5,000 years old. That's it. And to me, I don't understand how people can believe that. I firmly believe in God, honest 100%. I just don't believe in the same way as other people. And I believe that God is the source of everything in the universe. Like, everything stems from this source. So when people are talking about, the universe this, the universe that, they're talking about God. When another religion is talking about Allah, they're talking about God. When the Hindus talk about, their different versions of God, it's all the same story, just told differently. And anyone who doubts that has not taken the time to actually research outside of their religion or their belief system or their scientific viewpoint. Like, again, we get drilled into our heads all the way through college that this is the way that it is. Or if you go the religious route, you get drilled your entire life from when you're a kid that, the Bible is it. There's nothing outside of it. You don't need any other books. And as a matter of fact, a lot of times you're not even allowed to look at other books. And that's a scary thought. It's never sat well with me that you can't look outside of that. And, science is not much different. You start to really think about it, like, especially like things that have gone on the last couple of years, like, we're starting to not be allowed to question science. Like, anybody who understands science knows that science is always changing. Always. Nothing is set in stone. Like, nothing. Just like our view on history. History is always changing. And to think that it's set in stone is just human ignorance. And it's something that we have to get out of our mind, because we've been taught that since we were children. We've had it spoon-fed to us by our parents, by our pastors, by our teachers, that this is the way it is and there's nothing outside of that. And it keeps us trapped in a bubble, a little bubble that we don't go outside of. And in all honesty, the people really controlling the world, that's what they want. They don't want us to know where we come from. They don't, like, why do you think there's so many different religions, so many different versions of everything in the world? Because if we knew the truth, about where we come from and our origins, it would all fall apart. It's 100%. Like, there's a lot of control in the world that most people don't take the time or want to think about, because it's scary. It really is scary to think, that just about everything we believe in is a manipulation. And again, that's another thing that I've been talking about in my weekly radio show with my buddy on Tuesday nights. It's the Anunnaki have a lot to do with this. And again, if you don't know who the Anunnaki are, like, it's a really crazy story. So essentially, the stories come from a collection of Sumerian tablets that have been found. Thousands of these tablets have been found and deciphered over the years by multiple people and cross-checked and all this stuff. And they paint a story, because the Sumerians kept logs of everything. They wrote down everything. These people had an advanced knowledge of astronomy. These people had advanced knowledge of medicine. These people had, advanced knowledge of law, all sorts of ethics. How could they have known all the stuff they knew? How could they have had such a, how could they have built, they didn't build the pyramids, but like the Egyptians. Like, these are literally mathematical perfections. Like, the Great Pyramid of Giza it's like an impossibility, like how perfect it is mathematically. And again, this is something that most people never think about. Like, we're told that it was built by Egyptians and by a pharaoh and by a bunch of slaves pulling these blocks. And it's absolutely ignorant to accept that. Like, it's been literally proven to this day that it couldn't have been done. Not in the time frame they did, and not in the way they did it, or the way they said it was done. And again, this is something else that drives my passion for this kind of knowledge. It's fun to learn about it. It's also fun to try to teach people and get you thinking. Like, my beliefs are not set in stone about anything, because as I learn, my worldview changes. So the one belief I can tell you that I have set in stone is that God is the source of everything in the universe. That's where everything comes from. And the reason why you can have a connection with God, no matter what you believe in, like, it doesn't matter what religion, doesn't matter, anybody can have a connection with God. It's because it's all of us are God. We have all come from that same source, ultimately, our soul. I'm not talking about this physical avatar body. I'm talking about our consciousness, our soul comes from this source. And honestly speaking, it doesn't matter what you believe in. That's why, people can read these books and stuff and get a connection with God. Like, but what it goes down to, what's the manipulative part of all of it, is the control over the information, the control of how you can act, the control of, alienating other people from your religion, hating someone based on what they believe. Since the dawn of mankind, there's been countless examples of people literally killing each other in the name of God. And why is that? Why? I mean, think about it. So we accept that in the Bible. You read that stuff, we accept it. Yeah, that is what it is. If you think about, if you were to do that right now, if I were to say that God gave me a vision that I needed to go kill all the non-believers in today's age, what do you think would happen? 100% you'd be put to death. And we read this kind of stuff in the Bible and we accept it, or we read it in these other different religious books that say very similar things, and we accept it. So why is it that was an acceptable time period for that to happen and not now? And, somebody asked me today, is like, why is God not killing all the non-believers now? That's a good question. Why is that? And the answer is a really controversial one. And honestly, it's if you want to read into the Sumerian text, the Sumerian cuneiform text. Honestly, it's mind-blowing, because the way these things are worded, you can obviously tell that a lot of these books, these different religious books, are actually, they pull from these tablets. And it's mind-blowing. It can, they give a complete story, not just part of the story. They give a complete story of mankind, how we came to be. And it's crazy. It's crazy how much sense it makes. I'm an analytical person. Like, it explains quite a bit that nothing else can. Like, for example, I'm going to go right back to it. So we can't explain how we keep finding older and older ruins. That is something we have not been able to explain. We can't explain how it seems like all these ancient peoples were interacting with beings that were more advanced than them. There's depictions of spacecraft. There's depictions of people with elongated skulls. The Dogon tribe had knowledge that they shouldn't have had. If you don't know who that is, look it up. They had knowledge of a star system they shouldn't have had. How could they know that if they're living in the middle of Africa with no contact with anybody else? How could it seem like all these ancient peoples from, across the world, how are they building pyramids in South America? Why were they building pyramids? Why are we finding pyramids all over the world when these people were supposed to not be connected in any way? And you start to realize that it's the same group, essentially, the Anunnaki, that ended up spreading all over the world. And each one of them got a certain part of the world, and then they brought that up to different levels of civilization. And I know it sounds like a crazy idea, but I'm telling you, if you read into the Sumerian cuneiform tablets, which you can go, just type in the cuneiform library on Google, and you can actually literally read this stuff for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. You can read it. It's absolutely fascinating. Like, read the Enuma Elish, read the that's the only one I can think of at the top of my head, the Epic of Gilgamesh. There's the tablet of creation, the emerald tablets of Thoth. There's so much information there, and you're cheating yourself out of a good knowledge if you don't read it, man. Like, I'm definitely fascinated in the subject. And again, it's one of the things that caused me to want to do all of this, to want to talk to people. This podcast, I don't even care how many people listen to it. The fact is it's an outlet. It's something for me to talk about all this stuff that I've been learning, and hopefully make, even if it's one person, think outside the box, think outside your religious paradigms, think outside what your school has taught you, what society has taught you, and really start to question the world around you. Like, we are literally, a walking perfection. We shouldn't exist on this planet the way we do. And honestly, we need to start taking better care of the planet. Like, I get tired of people being like, you're calling people tree huggers. Absolutely, I'm a tree hugger. You know why? Because we need the planet in order to live. We can't keep destroying it. Like, it's nonsense to think that we should just be able to destroy the planets and kill all the animals. And like, somebody argued with me the other day, they were like, God gave us dominion over all the animals, so we should be able to kill them as we wish. And that's ignorant. That's something that's been passed down that should never have been. And it's honestly a manipulation. There is a lot of spiritual knowledge in the Bible, but there's also a lot of negative knowledge. And the more you really learn about the Sumerians, the more you learn about the stuff, you'll start to see, if your mind is open enough, that it's really just the Bible and a lot of other texts are a condensed version of older stories. And essentially, the Anunnaki were an advanced group of people from space, from a different planet, that came here, according to their text, looking for gold. They got tired of, I'm going to do a condensed version of this, so they got tired of looking for gold, or got tired of mining for it by themselves, so they genetically modified or manipulated the Homo erectus with their own DNA, and thus creating a primitive worker called the Lulu. And essentially their first created name was the Adamu. That was the name of the worker they created. Then, doesn't that sound awfully familiar to Adam? And honestly, they've traced DNA. Once they mapped the genome and traced DNA, they've traced it all the way back to 200,000 years for us in our current form. And that's exactly the same time period that they say that they created their primitive worker. And honestly, it explains a lot of holes in everything, the creation, the evolution, all that stuff. And it's honestly a really fascinating tale, really, really cool to think about. And for me, it's like it lights fires off in my head. So anyway, I'm right out of time. This is Josh with the Synchronized Universe Podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you for listening. Have a great day.